All right, I think we will get started here. Welcome, everyone. Glad you could join us today for our 1 hour webinar, Recruit and Retain Top Talent in a Competitive Labor Market. This webinar is also an IOFM certified webinar, so all attendees will receive one CEU following the presentation. I'm Sam Maxwell, part of the marketing team here at MHC, and I'll be facilitating today's discussion. With us today is our speaker, Rocco Lewick, who I will be introducing shortly. First, I'd like to go over several housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded, and attendees will receive a follow-up email with the link to the recording on our website. All participants are muted to prevent background noise, so please type in any questions you may have into the Q&A section. There will also be a post-webinar survey that will appear when the webinar ends. Please use the survey to let us know how we're doing and to request any additional information so an MHC resource can follow up with you. We really appreciate that feedback. Awesome, Rocco. If you just want to click to the next slide for me. Awesome. If you want to click through maybe some transitions. Perfect. Awesome. So for those of you not familiar with MHC, we help organizations tackle digital transformation with speed and confidence using our solutions to automate the capture, transformation, and communication of paper and digital documents across core business processes. Our flexible end-to-end automation platform helps users eliminate tedious procure-to-pay and order-to-cash tasks, increase efficiency, achieve operational excellence goals, and strengthen relationships with customers and vendors. Awesome. Next slide, please. So like I said, with us today is Rocco Lewick. Next slide. So quickly about Rocco. He teaches courses in economics and finance at the undergraduate, graduate, and doctoral level. He has earned a BA and MBA from Canisius College and a PhD degree from Niagara University. He has also given many local and national presentations concerning fraud, fiduciary liability, and most recently, inward foreign direct investment. Awesome. So I'll pass it along to you now, Rocco.
Okay, thank you, Sam, for introducing the presentation today, and welcome everyone. Happy to be here. And first, let's just talk a little bit about the agenda. I'll give you a little bit of an introduction as to what the presentation is going to be about today. We'll have a brief overview of unemployment, the background on unemployment. I have a few figures to demonstrate that, and then also job outlook for accounting and finance professionals. And then we're going to shift a little bit into what I would call part 2 of this, which is recruitment and retention strategies. We'll end with some poll questions and then open it up for some questions and answers. All right. So the title of this presentation is Recruitment and Retention Strategies in a Strong Labor Market. And I was sharing this information a little bit, and when MHC and I were talking about possibly doing a presentation together, one of the things that I was hearing from my position at the university and from some of our companies locally was that there's a shortage of accounting and finance professionals. And I'll be using accounting and finance professionals almost interchangeably, but especially for accountants, people graduating with accounting degrees, firms that might be recruiting accountants, either in accounts payable, accounts receivable, in the various positions that they can hold in industry. And there's a few reasons why this happened, and it got me to think, well, if there's a shortage, are we still recruiting accountants and financial professionals in the same way that we once were? If not, why? And is there anything that can be done to enhance the recruitment and retention strategies of firms to help recruit this group of individuals who are already in short supply? And so just some things to consider, some questions that I'd like you to kind of think about, and maybe even think about your organizations and what you're doing today, or maybe even previous organizations. What does the labor market look like at present? So today, we're seeing a strong labor market where you can have employees who have lots of skills. I'll go into this in a few slides that have some options. And a lot of these options are maybe to work from home, to do a lot less traveling. As we know, accountants usually, if they go into public, start traveling quite frequently. And what does that mean for the employer? So if the labor market's strong and employees have options, what does that mean for the employer? And how can we start thinking not only about how do we get people into the door, but how do we retain them? Because these options, they can take advantage of these options. And some of this came about with one of the firms that we have locally here, and they were sharing with me some of their recruitment and retention strategies that they offer because they're having a very hard time finding qualified accountants for their business. So what does that mean for the business? I kind of tied that into the first bullet. What does it mean for business is that businesses might have to start being a little different in recruiting accountants and financial professionals because they are in high demand. And it's become more technological to be an accountant than it was in the past. I mean, there was always a need to use Microsoft Excel to know how to use VLOOKUPs. And now when you look at certain companies, whether you go to investment banking or maybe even financial technology, some of the presentations I sat on last week, we're saying they might be dealing with a lot of data, and so using coding programs to deal with that data like R and Python might also be something that an accounting and finance professional is going to take a look at for their skill set. So how might a business strategize in the current market? Well, first, think about that, what market you're in, and how do we define the market? I'm talking in a national labor market right now, but it could be in an area where the presence of a local university or college, you might have one or two, or the pool of candidates is not as great, or it might be a lot and they have a lot of options. So your market can get very micro at a micro level. And what the pay is that the competitors are also offering. And lastly, but not least, what are job prospects looking for? And a lot of times we think about recruiting and retention for accounting and financial professionals straight out of college. But oftentimes what I am seeing and hearing from the industry is that there are a lot of mid-career professionals that are looking to make a transition, maybe from public to corporate, using their skill sets in a different area, maybe even moving out of a management role and saying, I think I just want to go and work and be responsible for my work, maybe work from home and get an option from that, or whatever the case might be. But what are job prospects actually looking for in this case? And is it financial? Is it always money? Is it, if they have the skill sets, what are they looking for from an employer? So we'll take a little bit of a look into this. First, though, this is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So you can go to their website and you can kind of look over the unemployment numbers. So these are unemployment rates. And they are from 2013 to 2023. They're broken out by month. And so you could see back in 2013, in February, the unemployment rate was at 7.7%. And if we just look at the column for the month of February, you can see the unemployment rate with a few, maybe in 2021, we saw 6.2% that could have been left over from COVID. And then 2022, 2021, 2023, currently it's down to 3.6%. Now for unemployment, the way they define it is you have to be actively seeking work. So if someone just left the job market, they're not going to be counted in this unemployment rate. But 3.6% is relatively low. If we look on the axis, like an x-axis there for 2022 for the entire year, it was trending between 3.5 and 4% for the year. So we went from January to February at 3.8, March 3.6, April 3.6. It's stayed pretty consistent. Of course, these numbers are adjusted now, so they're pretty from 2022, so they're fairly accurate. July 3.5, not a lot of movement on the unemployment side. Okay, so Bureau of Labor Statistics is a good source to kind of take a look at what the unemployment rate is. A lot, people are looking from the unemployment rate are actively working. So what's the job outlook though for accountants? Well, that's a different question, right? What's the job for an accountant is another thing. So accountants have a lot of, anyone with an accounting degree or finance degree has a lot of skill sets that they can bring to the marketplace. But let's take a look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics Occupational Outlook Handbook. Okay, and generally this, if you go to this, you'll be able to find a lot of interesting information on different types of careers, job outlook, trends over the next 10 years, if it's going to be in high demand, how much it's going to grow over the next 10 years. But when we look at accountants, and they will define this as generally people who could work as budget analysts, auditors, and things of that sort. There's a big list in the Department of Labor, Bureau of Labor Statistics. Employment for accountants for the 2021 to 2031 10-year period is expected to grow 6%. So still highly in demand, growing 6%. That's a pretty good growth rate. As well, I kind of looked at financial services professionals. I said, okay, well, let's say someone comes out with a finance degree. What is their growth rate going to look like? And financial services professionals is expected to grow, and they actually had this there 6% as well. So when I took a look at the currently how many openings there might be, well, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, about 136,400 openings for accountants and auditors are projected each year on average. That's a pretty good source of jobs that are open for accountants and auditors. And this could be newly graduated accountants and auditors and financial professionals, but it could also be experienced people, can go back and forth from industry. You probably have known people who have done that, who have actually gone from public accounting to management accounting or accounts payable, accounts receivable, and then back to maybe public. A lot of different areas that they can go into and succeed in their jobs. So 136,400 openings for accountants projected each year on average. There aren't that many that are they going to be filled? Who knows? How long can you keep an employee on staff and retain them at the organization? And so those are kind of the things that I'd like you to think about and potentially even share some thoughts on what you've been doing or your organization has been doing to help account for this. Another thing to consider, and some of this happened during COVID, but accountants are retiring or leaving the industry. So we do have, there's a lot of different journals out there that are actually going through the data and showing that accountants are retiring at a higher rate, or they're leaving the industry and they're going into something else. And that is causing, or helping contribute, I should say, not causing, but helping to contribute to the shortage that we're seeing in accounting. In addition to accountants retiring and or leaving the industry, graduation rates seem to be on a downward trend from accounting programs, have declined slightly. Maybe perhaps students coming into programs are not as interested in majoring in accounting as they have in previous years or in finance. There's a lot of discussion around that as to why that might be the case. Some anecdotal information that might be the case is that majoring in accounting and majoring in finance are fairly difficult majors. It's a different skill set. It's difficult. It's it's challenging. It is hard, although the options for employment after graduation are pretty good. Um, the other thing that one of the journals had talked about, and also anecdotally, people have stated, is that many people with an accounting degree who do want to seek a certified public accountant designation have to go and get a master's degree to reach the 150 credit hours under the new rules. So price point might be pretty high for that. Students might be thinking, do I want to do that when I can major in finance or computer science and with a 4-year degree, um, in a lot less debt, make some money. So, and that be contributing to a shortage as well? That would be interesting to look at. Intuition probably says yes, it does. Work expectations and the employee expectations have changed, and we've seen that recently. I've had many discussions with people, and even in education, it's changed. How many universities now are offering complete online degree programs, whereas just 10, 15 years ago, you didn't really see that. Now it's pretty common for online degree programs. Work expectations have changed a little bit. Work remotely from anywhere. If you look and you just do job searches for some of the big four accounting firms, you can see that a lot of times they have remote positions available. So those have happened. Employee expectations have also changed where they're expecting that. They're expecting to have some sort of remote ability. I was thinking back some time ago that this really, there was a work remote maybe from 1 or 2 days a week was permitted. And I think now the expectation is sometimes that this is what individuals or employees are seeking. And is that something that our organizations we work for can support? If that's the expectation to work remotely, how do we handle that as an organization? How do we develop an employee? How do we get, as this presentation is accredited for 1 CEU credit, how do we mentor people? Tell them about certifications and different things that they can do within the organization. And so all this becomes challenging for an organization strategically to have in place before they just say, okay, well, come on in, you're working remote. And if they have options within a year and a half, maybe 2 years, those options can become a reality. And now we find ourselves trying to replace, which costs money for the organizations. So recruitment, looking at this, despite the shortage, and there is a shortage of accountants are still in high demand among employers. If you look at the amount of different positions that accountants can get into at an organization, and I'm not just talking about public accounting right now, but I'll use the term management accounting, working for organizations or in a corporation, the list is extensive. And the skills that they can bring there are in demand, even for positions that are a little bit not necessarily directly related to accounting. But I'm sure everybody knows a little bit about data analytics, running data. And I put some stuff in here that I mentioned early on in the slides. Many accountants develop these skills in school or in continuing education credits, or they take another course to get better at it. Transferable skills. Most accountants and financial professionals are pretty good at Excel and conducting VLOOKUPs. What about data management? We hear a lot about data analytics. A lot of public accounting firms deal a lot with data analytics and analysis. And some accountants, depending on the accounting degree program they're coming from or a finance program, they are now integrating working with larger sets of data in these courses, and they're learning how to code for R, learning how to code for Python, these open source systems that can handle a lot more data than Microsoft Excel. And so you can come out with a degree in finance and actually work in another capacity in data analytics. And so that's another option that maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, really wasn't in that high demand as it is today, as we have so much more organizations working with data and trying to sort through that data. I also put in here SQL programming, and that's program trying to pull data from the organization and whatnot. And there are some courses that incorporate SQL programming, and so you could have an accounting major coming out and major and being skilled at SQL programming and R and Python. So the point of recruitment is, if you belong to any professional societies or you run into people and sometimes they have student memberships, is that it's going to make it more difficult for employers to potentially recruit, because the skill sets that accountants and financial professionals are bringing with them are easily transferable into other positions in non-accounting type jobs. And it's often putting upward pressure on salaries and benefits. So in order to compete, sometimes these organizations have to increase the salaries, increase the benefits, increase whether it's a direct benefit or an indirect benefit, in order to get them to come to work. And we haven't even talked about if there is a location requirement. That's another thing to consider as well. Are they going to be required to move? Are they going to be required to travel? All these things play a huge component in the recruitment side. But I think this slide is really important in the realm that, if we start thinking about what are the skill sets that an accountant brings or a financial professional, and understanding that even if they are on the job and we successfully recruited them, the options are still there for someone else to recruit them or for them to go into consulting. There's a lot of accounts I know that have left and have just gone into consulting using their skill sets that way. Okay. So what can we do about it? Recommendation. I don't know if any organizations here today have done this, but a compensation or benefit review might be a good idea for a firm. There are a lot of really good firms out there that can provide a compensation review. And what that would entail is looking at your organization or my organization and benchmarking it against similar organizations. So you don't want to look at maybe a big four with a regional firm. That would be kind of unfair, but maybe benchmark within the same group based on revenue or whatever number of employees. And so to see whether or not that organization is going to lag or lead in compensation. And that's a business strategy. Some organizations, they can't afford it. So they're going to lag in compensation, but maybe they make up for it in indirect benefits, work from home, things of that sort, light on travel. Or the other thing that an organization might want to consider is a benefit review. Okay. Review your benefits. Are we really offering all the benefits that organizations, or I shouldn't say organizations, that employees are looking for today? Of course, some of the common ones, which I'll go over later, health insurance, retirement, things of that sort. But oftentimes you see organizations offering benefits that employees are not taking advantage of, but they're there. Is there something else that we should be doing? And so there are a lot of good firms that can do an employee benefit benchmark on your health insurance and on other things to see, okay, how much do we pay or contribute towards the employer health insurance versus our competitors? What type of plans do we offer versus the plans of our competitors? And these are the things that could oftentimes give you some information, actionable information, to make informed decisions on how to strategically improve the recruitment process. Job analysis design, job analysis review is often recommended as well. When's the last time that a job analysis has been done? So what is a job analysis? There's a lot of good firms that can do this. You can do it internally as well. If you have human resources inside your organization, is the job what we think it is, or is the job the same as it was 5 years ago? right? And so sometimes you'll see a job description and it maybe was written 5, 7, 8 years ago, and perhaps it's changed a little bit now, and nobody really knew about it or caught it. And so a job analysis would actually go to that person doing the job and say, oh, well, it's not done like that anymore. Okay, maybe the skill sets have changed. Maybe we need more Microsoft Excel on this job than we did 8 years ago, or maybe the job merged with another job. And so now you're doing a little bit of this job and a little bit of that job, and the job description doesn't make sense. And the person gets the job and says, I thought I was applying to this, and they start working and actually it's something else, something different. And that can affect the retention side. So a job analysis is always a nice thing to do to make sure that what we're hiring for is actually what we're hiring for. The aspects of a job, again, may have changed over time. And so how do we know if it did? How do we know if the skill sets and the expectations are what we expect them to be 5 years from now? And so I'm a really big proponent of a job analysis review, and just to make sure that this is where the job description, so you do your job analysis and the job description comes from that it matches. There's a lot of employee benefits that a firm can take a look at for recruitment and retention. I talked a little bit about health insurance on the previous slide. And health insurance, how many plans do we offer? Depending on the state that you're in, most times it's regulated by the state that you're headquartered in. And so you have to, deal with, work with a competent consultant, broker, or health insurance company representative. But how much are we contributing towards the plans? Are we offering high deductible plans? Are we offering more of the old Cadillac type plans, which are copay based and things of that sort? How much do we contribute? Does it change a lot? All these can factor in. Health insurance is probably one of the biggest aspects of recruitment and retention. Okay. And this is something that it should probably be reviewed as well. But check with the states that you're in and deal with people who are competent in that area. The other thing I have down here is life insurance. This is a nice benefit. It's usually not all that expensive to have a group life insurance policy, but it's something that is of value to employees. And so the communication of that actually becomes important as well. I'm going to kind of put these together. Well, dental insurance is one. Sometimes dental insurance you'll see is offered, and it is what we call contributory or non-contributory, whether or not the employer pays for it or not. Sometimes it's strictly on the employee. Sometimes it isn't. But you might want to take a look if that's something you don't offer or do offer and nobody takes it. Maybe ask why. It might be the contribution amount. Maybe there's something you can replace it with. Those are some of the recruitment benefits that you should go through and just kind of see, okay, what are we exactly offering? Who's taking advantage of these offerings that we have on our platform? Short-term disability insurance and long-term disability insurance, again, with the state that you reside in. Short-term disability, long-term disability, most people don't really think about this much, but disability insurance is fairly important. Disability insurance, when an employee gets hurt, obviously we want them back to work as soon as possible. And so disability insurance provides them a percentage of their income so that they can eventually, if hoping that they can come back. Okay. And it's a nice thing to have. It's what I kind of personally refer to as sleep insurance, that in case something does happen, you have that to take care of yourself and your family. This is a big one, and next one is education reimbursement. And when I say education, I don't just mean degrees. It could be certifications. It could be a class that you take that's just, I want to learn how to learn R, and there might be a weekend course or week-long course that you take. So education could be anything that betters someone, training, things of that sort. And so, does your company offer education reimbursement? Does it? A lot of times you'll see for these accounting and finance professionals, you'll see the alphabet list of alphabet soup of credentials that people want for that. And a lot of that requires CE credits, and CE credits cost money. And so maybe they reimburse for that. If you don't, maybe it's something we, take a look at and to see if we can help support that. That's a big boost. Some people who do have certifications can get another certification, and sometimes those credits, the CE credits, can count towards, and so they learn something new. Okay. The other thing could be degrees. Some people go back. I know students and want to get their master's degrees, and there's different things you can do with that. If you pay for their tuition, they have to get a certain grade to get reimbursed. And you could also say, okay, check with your state, but it could be that they can't leave the employer for a certain amount of time, or else it turns into a loan. So education reimbursement is an investment in the employee, and they hopefully will get better and can contribute more to your organization. And many probably don't even ask about education reimbursement, or it used to be called tuition reimbursement. But again, it's not always a degree granting university that you're going to for this. It could just be a certificate or something of that sort. So I like to say education reimbursement, but it's something nice. And we'll see how many people take that, take the employer up on that. But it is a very good benefit to offer to help with recruitment. Of course, I put in there pension plans, defined contribution or defined benefit plan. Defined contribution, similar, is really a 401k plan. Defined benefit, the old time, you work so many years and get X amount of dollars at the end every month. Most people have a defined contribution plan. Do we contribute? How much do we contribute? So the first question is, do we contribute? The second question is, are we competitive with our competitors who are trying to recruit the same people? So that might be something to take a look at from your pension advisors. If you do have one, try to take a look at that. I put remote work in here, and I've been talking a little bit about remote work. I see it happening quite often with remote work. It comes up quite a bit, even at the university, students looking for remote work when they graduate. It's a price. Some people want it. Some people thrive in it. I understand some people don't. They like to go to an office, but is it an option, at the place of employment? How do we design remote work? Because there's a lot of questions that come into play as well. I was chatting with a person that said, you don't want the employee to feel like they're on an island either, where, I'm working for this company, I don't really feel part of the company because I'm in remote work. So how do we design it in a way that they still feel like they're a part of the company? They still have a chance for mentorship. And how do I grow at the company? Are there any certifications that this organization would pay for that would help me move into this role or move into that role? And so those are the things where if maybe they want to move into a different role at the company, but they're still there, in my opinion, why not? That's okay. And that's fine. Voluntary benefits, another thing to take a look at. Voluntary benefits are usually offered on a group platform, employer platform, and then employees can buy those. They could be additional disability plans. They have certain cancer incident plans, critical illness plans. So, if you don't offer that, take a look and see, maybe that's something we can put as part of our benefit package that we offer our employees, for some voluntary benefits that they can get for fairly inexpensive. Vacation's another one, and then sign-on bonuses. So I'll get into a little bit more of these. I just kind of give you an introduction here, but vacation, that's another one. Do we offer vacation in the style that used to be the style, or have we changed it a little bit and sign-on bonuses? But I'll get into that in a second. Here's, some things about health insurance. Some of these I already went over. Some of them I'll focus on a little bit. Hopefully this is getting you to at least think about what are we doing, and maybe what can we do differently if it's an option. And if it's not an option, it's not an option, and that's okay too. But one of the suggestions that a lot of experts have is to try to offer plans that appeal to both new, middle, and senior level employees. So sometimes employers will focus on the cost themselves, but everyone has different needs when it comes to their health care. Sometimes depending on where they are, the stage of their career impacts that. So if we can offer new, middle, and senior level employees something that fits their stage in their life, that would be ideal. One thing you might want to evaluate how many single and family plans you have currently. So employers may be able, depending on your state, you have to check with your state and your insurance carriers, develop plans with various employee tiers. You can have different tiers like single plus children, single and family, and then family. So those different premiums would be different. So everyone single would be different from single plus just the children and not the spouse. And if you have more single plus dependents and not the spouse, you can have different premium rates, and your contributions could be, for your employer, be geared towards that type of rating system. Okay, but that takes an evaluation to kind of find out what is of need with the employer. Also, if we do have I didn't put it in here, but getting back to some other things, if you have a qualified deductible plan, you can offer a health savings account or health reimbursement account. If you offer a health savings account, is the health savings account, do we contribute to it at benchmark? Are we lagging, or are we leading in our contributions for the health savings account? I already went over a lot of this when I was on the previous slide, but the tuition reimbursement is something that anytime I mention to a student who's about to graduate and say, ask if you're going on interviews, ask if they have a tuition reimbursement, they actually find that pretty exciting. And just here on the second bullet point, many new or mid-career professionals are seeking employers with educational reimbursements. So sometimes they are looking to maybe they wanted to start a master's degree, or they wanted to get a certificate or get better at something, and now's the time. They're mid-career, now is the best time to do it, and so this is actually helping them do it, and they can contribute a lot more to your organization. Okay, it also applies for a pipeline for certain employees. As I had stated before, to go to different departments. I was talking to an accounting firm not too long ago where they have, they're a big regional accounting firm, and they have tax, they have audit, they also have asset-based lending at their firm. And one of the tax managers said, "Oh, I always wanted to get into asset-based lending." And that was one of the, but I'm in tax. And so those are some of the conversations that you can have with partners or with a vice president. Say, I really like to do this, and you would rather have them do that at your organization probably than go to another organization and go into asset-based lending. So that conversation is kind of good to have in performance reviews and things of that sort, to see what their goals are. Okay. Benchmark your defined contribution plan. Are your contribution plans competitive with your competitors? Okay. Do we contribute the same amount? Is it usually a percentage of salary? And that also goes back to the salary benchmark to see if our salaries are in line with some of our competitors as well. Does your organization have retirement meetings with financial professionals? So let's say the organization says, yeah, we offer a retirement plan. Do they have meetings? And this comes into play too with remote work. So how do we get that meeting, or if we have a rep coming to our organization, how do we strategically invite people who are working remotely? or maybe traveling for the organization to make sure that they can meet with a financial representative. So in conclusion on this one, contributions may vary from employer to employer, and they often do. If anyone's had different positions at organizations, we all know that. But remaining competitive or leading in this area may help with recruitment, and it may also help with mid-career professionals. So mid-career professionals who might say, yeah, they might have taken a hit on the market, and now they can go to a company that offers a little bit more in their defined contribution plans, that can help bring an experienced person to your organization who's looking for just a little bit more. And it doesn't have to be much, a couple percentages, but that's something that could recruit if you're trying to recruit experienced professionals. Remote work really happened during COVID-19, and it changed work. Everyone was pretty much everyone, not everyone, but a fair amount were working from home, and it became something that continued. And many large multinational employers are now allowing remote work from anywhere. There might be travel requirements and things of that sort, where they do have to go to headquarters once in a while, but they are recruiting accountants and financial professionals. And so if you're out recruiting as well, keep in mind, they're probably eventually going to interview similar people with similar qualifications, and there would be no requirement to relocate, and so they can work from home and work for a fairly large firm. If remote work is allowed, now what? Because we do have other challenges as organizations, other than, okay, you're working from home and the technology is working and we're paying for your business class internet. How does an organization create an organizational culture that builds mentorship and promotes retention? I mean, we want to make sure that the employee feels as though the organization cares about the employee and is interested in them succeeding in their job. And so that's hard to do. It's a challenging prospect to do remotely. You don't see them every day. You see them probably on scheduled meetings. And so those are some big challenges to make them feel part of that organization and not like they're on an island. So that's something that I'm interested in seeing what organizations are doing as the years go on, and this becomes almost a standard in a lot of organizations and how they're dealing with this, especially from the retention point of view. How do we retain employees where those connections might not be being built as they were so easily when people went to an office? Vacation. So vacation, some places, it's up to the place, but used to be a phased approach, and it was all different combinations. But I just put in here some examples that I was familiar with. After 1 year, you might get 2 weeks. After 2 years, 3 weeks, and et cetera, et cetera. And that model still exists for many firms, of course. And then sick days were separate, and sometimes personal days were separate. It depends. You can have a internal review of this or a compensation firm reviewing this, but some organizations have explored and went to a paid time off program, or PTO. And so this is when they take sick days, vacation days, and personal days and put them all in one category. And you can choose the amount of days you want to have to start for PTO, and have carryover allowed for so many days. And it can be a nice recruitment and retention tool, because we don't know what the others are doing, our competitors, but people do like paid time off. And this might be something that will assist them with retaining and recruiting employees. So I would say think about that. Some organizations that I saw had 28 days paid time off, and that was for the year. And you could carry over 5, and you can buy 5. So you can have, potentially, if you didn't use anything, you could have 38 days in 1 year of paid time off. Now, are you going to use 38 days? Who knows, right? It's a lot of time off, but people liked it. People liked it a lot. Vacation, just continuing. This is something that I heard some firms are kind of looking at. And these are public accounting firms now that were looking at this, have elected to have one paid week off in July or August for every employee, to just have more recruitment and retention, more time off in the summer months. Okay, July or August. And as all of you know, many accounting jobs require long hours. And so that extra time that someone has to take a breath or come back rejuvenated is important for them to be productive on the job. And so this additional benefit is really focused on that retention piece for employees to come in. The other thing is, and this is kind of goes back to a little bit more of maybe executive compensation plans, but sign-on bonuses. Some companies are trying to offer sign-on bonuses. I know companies are doing this for data analytics. I've had recruiters contact me that they have sign-on bonuses for majors who people are majoring in data analytics. You may want to consult a compensation specialist on how best to structure this sign-on bonuses, but this could be useful for a mid-career professional who might be leaving benefits behind because they've been at a job for a while and maybe they have those 28 days off, and the pay is kind of similar, but they like the culture of your organization maybe a little bit more. Maybe it's a little bit slower paced for them. They want to do something different. And so when they leave, we get a sign-on bonus, and that helps that recruitment. So you might want to take a look at that to see if that's something that is of interest to your organization. Just some concluding thoughts on this. And of course, there's so many thoughts when we look at a shortage of accounting and finance professionals, but the industry for accounting and finance professionals is changing in a variety of ways. I talked a little bit about this in previous slides with a little downward sloping graduation rates, but also there's been merger and acquisition activity in businesses, and also in accounting businesses, especially with some smaller regional firms. And so I keep saying 15, 20 years ago, you had potentially, it was at least in my area, smaller firms that have sold. They combined, and basically they found firms that were doing business that they weren't doing and merged. And so that way it was easier than to start a whole new business unit. Curriculum in accounting and finance majors include a lot of subjects now, and this is the talk at the higher education level, is that data analytics has really filtered into a lot of accounting and finance programs, and using systems beyond Microsoft Excel and using R, maybe even Python at upper level finance or graduate level work. And so those parallel fields that I call them, they can easily say, well, I like this data analytics, and I can move over into a parallel field quite easily. Mid-career professionals, especially those in management, we're looking at that, and they might be looking to leave management behind. And we saw this during the pandemic where some people just said, I'm going to leave this management thing behind. I've been doing it for a while, and maybe it's time for me to do something else. And if they have the skill sets, that could be something at your company that they might be looking for. So the bottom line here is that the labor market is strong, especially for those who have accounting and finance degrees, and employees have options. And so it's very important, at least what I believe and from what I'm seeing, that companies do a little bit of strategic planning at this time. I think now's a good time to do that and to see, has what we have been doing in our organization for the past 10 years, pre-pandemic, is it still going to work moving forward? And so that's the question that I will leave you with. Okay, so this is poll question number one. Has your organization been affected by the increase in inflation? So inflation has been a hot topic since around 2021. 67% said yes, probably, perhaps, maybe, putting upward pressure on some salaries. But 33% were unsure. So that could be the case. And the reason for the question with inflation was because typically you'll see wages start to increase to keep pace with overall price increases or inflation. And so that's why I thought this question might be a good one to ask. Okay, let's see. Poll question number two. Has recruiting accountants been more difficult in recent years for your organization? So I think we have some answers still coming in here. Right now, we look at yes, 75%, unsure, 25%, almost an 80-20, saying yes. And I think that those of you who answered yes, you're not unique. So yes, and hopefully this presentation contributed to maybe some things that we can discuss and you can bring back to your employer or your business and kind of think about ways to recruit in a different way that might work better, but there's a shortage and the demand is high. So and 25% were unsure, and that's fine. You might just not be knowing at that point if it's difficult to recruit an accountant. All right, let's go on to poll question number three. Is retaining accountants more challenging than before? And so this one's at right now, it's still moving around. Yes is at 86%. That's pretty high, 86%. And again, to give you some comfort, you're not unique in experiencing that. So again, the accountants have options. And so how are organizations changing, if they can, what they're doing to retain? So a recruitment and retention strategy is huge for an organization that has accounting and finance professionals. Absolutely. Poll number four is, do you have an active or upcoming AP initiative? So right now I have yes, 43% and unsure 57%. So that is 43, that's almost 45%. That's quite a bit. So there's a new AP initiative out there. And again, others, it could be in a different department or a different organizational level that's making that decision. So thank you for sharing. Sam, I'll turn it over to you for a moment.
Awesome. Thanks, Rocco, for that awesome presentation. So yeah, with the final few minutes we have left here, we did have some questions throughout the presentation. So I figured now would be a good time for that. So question number one, the term inflation is getting thrown around a lot these days. What is your definition of it?
So the general definition of inflation is just overall price increase, overall price increases over time.
Great. Question number two is during the presentation, you used the term total compensation mix. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so typically in compensation, total compensation mix is the fixed pay and then the variable pay, which would be maybe sales commission
Hmm,
or bonuses or things like that.
awesome. And then the other little final question we have for today is do you know what the current unemployment rate is?
I think the current unemployment rate is around 3.6%.
Got it. Awesome. Well, that wraps up our webinar for today. Rocco, definitely thank you again. You shared some great insight on how you can recruit and retain top talent in today's competitive marketplace. If you want to click to the next slide for me. Um, Before we wrap up, MHC North Star can help by empowering your team to take ownership of your processes, your documents, and your communications with the simplicity of self-service. We help streamline your AP payment processes with an automated account payable solution configured to your specific business needs. And finally, we maintain compliance, reduce your AP team's workload to ensure that payments are made accurately and on time. Awesome. Thank you again, Rocco, and thank you for everyone for attending. If you're interested in learning more about what's going on at MHC, please register for our monthly newsletter. You'll receive reminders about upcoming webinars and interesting thought leadership content like today.